We are back in the black hole of real estate, and this week the Fed chose to leave interest rates unchanged. And it's concerning to some people, and others are taking it in stride right now. And I'm going to talk about what effect it's going to have, if any, on the real estate market. This is your host, Ron Wojciechowski, for the black hole of real estate. And yeah, the Fed, they just left the rates alone this week. And I can't say that it's a shock. As a matter of fact, it was very expected by most people that are deep in the economic side of the real estate industry. It just turns out that we're at a time where typically, in most years, the busiest times of activity is right before or right after, like the week before, the week after April 15th and tax time. And with that comes increased activity. Now, not necessarily in the form of new listings and new homes going under contract, but rather that people are re-engaging because we're nearing the end of the school year, ending the snowbird season, ending the corporate tax season, at a time when many people are planning for their summers and their vacations or their big trips for the year. And in so many instances, that also involves the possibility of moving. If you've just put the last kid through school and you're going to downsize and retire and move someplace else, you're in the market. If you are getting ready to go to school because your children are just coming into school age, you may be changing because of wanting to be in a particular school district. Maybe you're getting married. Maybe you're getting divorced. That would cause a relocation opportunity. Maybe you're relocating for work. Or maybe your work allows you to work remotely and then you can live anywhere. You see, these are all reasons that people move. And not so coincidentally, they seem to converge upon themselves at this time of year. So as the Fed has made the decision not to change rate, I'm not all that concerned for the real estate industry because the activity level is going to go up all by itself right now because it does every year. And where I do think we're going to see an opportunity is over the next couple of meetings, I think you'll see that quarter point relief coming in. Fact of the matter is, $100 or $200 in a change of a payment of a significant, price of a purchase could mean quite a bit to most families, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker, especially if they've been renting because the cost of ownership is still below cost of rent. Or if you're temporarily going to pay an extra $100 a month, there's something that might be cut out of a budget. The morning coffee and donut on the commute in, that could absolutely be a way to just cut that $100 out. So I don't think it's going to get in the way of anybody making the summer move. And my suspicion is, as we get into June, we may see that quarter point relief, or a little bit further down the road. I think we'll see it by August. And I think we'll see another one coming after that. It wouldn't shock me to see the rates in the low sixes or even a 5.875 sometime this year. But I think at the end of the year, they'll be like 6, 6.25. And I've been saying this all year long, and I still believe it. And there's nothing that's been happening that would cause me to not feel that way. So interest rates not going down this time, not a deal breaker for most people. Especially, and I'll remind you that so many mortgage companies right now are offering a free refinance, so to speak, where there's no lender fees to refinance somewhere down the road. A lot of companies are going to the 5 years, where if the rates go down favorably to you within 5 years, they'll waive the lending side of the fees in order for you to refinance to a lower rate to keep you, paying money to them and their servicers on a monthly basis versus allowing you to refinance with a different company, and then they don't get the servicing fees. So they want that business, and this is a way to recapture it through the refinance somewhere down the road, locking in their profits at today's interest rates, but also furthering that down the road. It's been a good play for a lot of mortgage companies. I anticipate it's going to happen, and for most people, if their time horizon is such that they're only going to be in the home for 2 or 3 years and then move again, because a lot of people do that, then waiting for the interest rate isn't necessarily something that makes a lot of sense. The move is more important than the savings that goes along with the lower rate. And in a lot of cases, the people, they simply need to move right now. It's that time window where it makes sense for them to do it. And if you think of $100, $200 a month, that's a couple grand a year. Getting the property sold in the summer when the activity level is higher, getting the right deal, Nobody's going to remember that $2,000, over the course of a year, several years down the road. They're going to remember that it got moved from the home they were in into the right home at the right time in the right location. That's what's going to be paramount to most people. The Fed is not just watching rates for the housing market. They're making their best attempts to keep inflation levels in check, to keep the economy moving forward, and to balance out markets. And we really don't know what's going to happen in the markets, especially with, today there was an announcement that there's going to be some tariff agreement with the UK. It's probably going to be unfolding over the next few weeks or even the next month or two, but there's a big one on the way. And I think that's the first domino to fall. It made sense for the U.S. to get something in place to the UK with a robust economy and a long-time ally of the U.S. And I think that you'll see more falling in right behind it. And as it gains momentum, I think that the play just might work to get people to the table to get more favorable rates with regard to the tariffs and allowing American businesses to better compete. And as this happens, there is that possibility that wages will go up and more things will be available from U.S. suppliers that can protect against, future supply chain concerns like we had during COVID. There's probably going to be some pain along the way, and I'll keep out of the political landscape, but if you just sit back and take a look at this, the dynamics are really interesting. And would it be that terrible if there was more industry in the U.S. and we made more things that U.S. consumers could buy? And would we have to spend less money and less time trying to get it from halfway around the world? See, the answer might just be yes. And if that's the case, it would seem to be able to help out the American economy, which would help home buyers afford better properties or go from renting to buying. So there's a lot in the mix here. So when we talk about the Fed not changing the rates, it doesn't mean that the housing market is going to suffer, because there's more involved than just the interest rate. And I think that as the more that we talk about this, the more we realize it's just one piece of the puzzle. If you're a cash buyer because you're selling a home that you've owned for many, many years that's free and clear, and now you're going to take that cash and relocate someplace else, see, the interest rate really doesn't matter to you. And in some years, it feels like half the deals that we do are cash deals, which are largely unaffected by interest rates. So for those that are still financing, there's some margin for error with the programs that we've talked about are in place. And the desire to move, or the need to move, the pressure to move, seemingly outweighs the pain of the prevailing interest rates that we're experiencing right now. Historically, we've talked about that rates 6, 7, 7.5%. It feels like it's an average if you really look back. And we did enjoy some super low, artificially depressed interest rates in the 2s and 3s and 4s that were probably once in a lifetime situations. If we ever went back to that, I think the people that went through it the first time would hold on to those rates. They might purchase more property because at such a low rate, it was a really good deal to buy property. And I think you'd see some of that. All of these things would suggest to me that prices will remain stable. Maybe by the end of the year, they actually go up a little bit more than they are right now. I don't know that we're going to see a dip in the market, but if we did experience one, I think it's pretty temporary, because the minute that the prices went down just a little bit too much, my suspicion is that rate reduction is going to come right around the corner from it, not necessarily as a reaction to the real estate market, but because the timing of the rest of things going in the economy would be heading in such a direction where it would make sense to have lower interest rates at the Fed level. So we'll wait for now for the rates to come down. But in the meantime, for those that are in the market, they are surging ahead and they're making plans to move this summer. And that's what I find interesting. If you got questions about this or want to make a comment, please drop it below. Definitely subscribe. We would like to have you able to have this content as often as you wish. And then, hey, join our community. It'll be really good to have you around. I know it's a growing podcast, and I enjoy this interaction that I'm getting after each of these sessions. This is your host, Ron Wojciechowski, for the Black Hole of Real Estate.